How are you guys doing? Today is Friday, December 23rd, 2022. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I am going to review yesterday's Elite matchups and performances from Thursday, December 22nd, as well as previewing what's going on today. Before I do so, I'm going to take a quick step back and look at where we are in the calendar year. In terms of college sports, we are near the end of the college football season as we are in the midst of bowl season, as there was a bowl game played yesterday. In college basketball, there were 3 ranked teams that played yesterday, as one of them would lose on the road. In the NFL, that yesterday's Thursday night football game would kick off week 16, as we have 3 more weeks left until the season's over. Taking a look at what's going on in the arena sports, of course, the NHL and the NBA are well underway. And of course, in terms of club soccer, Manchester City would go on and beat Liverpool in the English Carabao Cup and move on, and Atletico Madrid would move on in the Spanish Copa del Rey. Starting off with what's going on in college football, the unranked Air Force Falcons would face off against the unranked Baylor Bears in Fort Worth, Texas for the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. Air Force would go on to beat Baylor 30-15 after Air Force outscored Baylor 9-7 in the first half and then 21-8 in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, the visiting Baylor Bears were led out by their starting quarterback Blake Shapen. Their sophomore from Shreveport, Louisiana, would end up throwing for 188 yards as he threw 2 touchdowns. On the defensive side for Baylor, their leading tacklers would be Matt Jones and Dylan Doyle, as they each had 10 tackles. Baylor as a defense would combine for no sacks or interceptions. On the winning end of this matchup, unranked Air Force would be led out by their senior starting quarterback out of Franklin, New Jersey, Haaziq Daniels. Sorry if I butchered the name, by the way. He would throw for 103 yards as he threw a touchdown. He had 81 yards and a touchdown on the ground, giving him 184 yards of offense. Air Force's leading rusher would be Brad Roberts. Their senior running back from Arvada, Colorado, would finish with 37 carries for 116 yards as he had 2 rushing touchdowns. Their leading receiver, Amari Terry, had a 68-yard reception. Air Force's leading tackler on the defensive side was Jaden Goodwin. Their junior safety from Houston, Texas, would finish with 9 tackles on the day. Peyton Zdrowic, Air Force's sophomore defensive lineman from Brentwood, California, would finish with 4 tackles. He had 2 tackles for a loss and one of the team's 2 sacks. With this win, unranked Air Force would finish their season out with a 10-3 record, after finishing with a 5-3 record in the Mountain West, tied with Utah State, Wyoming, San Jose State, and San Diego State for the 3rd best record in the entire conference at the end. With this loss, the unranked Baylor Bears will finish their 2022 football season with a 6-7 record, after having finished with a 4-5 record in the Big 12, the 6th best or the 4th worst record in the entire conference. Segueing into what the bowl season is going to be looking like today, there's 2 bowls today. At 3 o'clock on ESPN, unranked Houston's going to face off against unranked Louisiana in Shreveport, Louisiana at Independence Stadium for the Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl. At 6:30 on ESPN today, right after that, unranked Missouri is going to face off against unranked Wake Forest in Raymond James Stadium for what's going to be the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl. So that's college football. Looking at what's going on with college basketball, the highest ranked team that played yesterday would be the defending champions, 4th ranked Kansas Jayhawks. They would host unranked Harvard at home, as they would beat Harvard in Allen Fieldhouse by 14 points. They won at 68-54. They would outscore Harvard by 9 in the first half. On the winning end, 4th ranked Kansas would be led in scoring by their starting forward, Jalen Wilson. One of the bigger players from their championship win last season, their junior from Denton, Texas, would finish with 21 points and 6 rebounds in 34 minutes. He would shoot 10 for 17 from the field. Kansas's starting guard, Kevin McCullough Jr., had 14 points, 11 rebounds, 3 steals, and 2 blocks in 33 minutes. He shot 5 for 12 from the field as he made all 4 of his free throws. And with this win, 4th ranked Kansas is now holding on to an 11-1 record, as with this loss, Harvard is now 8-5. Looking at the 5th ranked team in the nation, Arizona would host the unranked Morgan State Bears. Arizona would win this game 93-68 by 25 at home after they would outscore Morgan State by 16 in the second half. On the winning end of this matchup, fifth-ranked Arizona would be led in scoring by Asvolis Tubelis. Their junior forward from Lithuania would finish with 26 points, 9 rebounds, and a couple of steals in 30 minutes. Tubelis would shoot 9 for 10 from the field. He would make both of his three-point attempts as he would shoot 6 for 10 from the free throw line. Arizona starting center Umar Ballo had 21 points and 6 rebounds in 26 minutes. He would shoot a perfect 8 for 8 from the field as he was 5 for 6 from the free throw line. And then, of course, last but not least, the 16th ranked Illinois Fighting Illini would go to Mizzou to face off against the unranked Tigers. Mizzou would beat 16th ranked Illinois by 22. They won it 93-71 as they only have one loss this year. I imagine they're going to be ranked now. Mizzou would outscore Illinois by 24 in the first half, almost doubling what Illinois was able to put up as an offense. On the losing end of this matchup, Illinois would be led in scoring by their starting guard, Terrence Shannon Jr. He had 22 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists in 37 minutes. He shot 6 for 13 from the field and 10 for 12 from the free throw line. On the winning end of this matchup, unranked Mizzou would be led in scoring by their starting guard, Kobe Brown. Their senior from Huntsville, Alabama, would finish with 31 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, and 4 steals in 37 minutes. He shot 10 for 15 from the field, 3 for 4 from 3. He would make all 8 of his free throw attempts. Mizzou starting guard, Demoy Hodge, had 20 points and 4 steals in 30 minutes. He would go on and shoot 8 for 13 from the field. He would shoot 4 for 9 from 3, and he would go on and shoot 0 for 2 from the foul line. However, with this win, unranked Mizzou is now holding on to an 11-1 record, and with this loss, 16th ranked Illinois is now 8-4 so far. Those were yesterday's matchups. Taking a look at what's going on today, the only ranked team that's going to be playing today will be 18th ranked Indiana as they host unranked Kennesaw State at 7 o'clock in Bloomington in the Assembly Hall. So that's college sports. Taking a look at what's going on in the NFL, the New York Jets would host the Jacksonville Jaguars. In this matchup that would start week 16, the Jaguars would end up beating the Jets after outscoring the Jets 13-3 in the first half and then shutting the Jets out 6-0 in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, the hometown New York Jets would be led out at first by their starting quarterback, Zach Wilson. Their quarterback out of BYU and former number 2 overall pick would end up throwing for 92 yards as he threw an interception. He also had a yard on the ground. And then, of course, Chris Streveler would take over a little bit for the Jets as well. Their quarterback out of South Dakota would go on and throw for 90 yards himself. He also was the team's leading rusher with 54 yards on the ground, which gave him 144 yards of offense. The Jets' leading tackler on the defensive side would be C.J. Mosley. Their linebacker out of Alabama would finish with 12 tackles on the day. The Jets as a defense would combine for just 1 sack as it came from another Alabama player, Quinnen Williams. On the winning end of this matchup, the visiting Jacksonville Jaguars were led out by their elite young starting quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, out of Clemson. Lawrence would complete 20 of his 31 passes as he threw for 229 yards. He would rush for 51 yards on the ground, which would give him 280 yards of offense as his lone touchdown and the only touchdown of the game would come on the ground. Jacksonville's leading rusher, Travis Etienne Jr. out of Clemson, would have 83 rushing yards and 29 receiving yards through the air, which would give him 112 yards of offense. Jacksonville's leading receiver was Evan Ingram. Their tight end from Ole Miss would finish with 113 yards of offense. Jackson will be led in tackles by Devin Lloyd and Rayshawn Jenkins. They each had 9, as Devin Lloyd, Jacksonville's linebacker out of Utah, would also finish with the team's lone interception as well. With this win on the road, the visiting Jacksonville Jaguars are now 7-8. As of right now, they hold the second best record in the AFC South, as they just have 1 more loss than the Tennessee Titans, but the same amount of wins. So, of course, they're putting that pressure on the Titans, who are leading their division. Outside of the wild card picture, they still have 1 less win than the 7th seed Miami Dolphins. As of right now, the Jaguars are on a 3-game winning streak, having won 4 of their last 5 games. With this loss at home, the New York Jets are 7-8. That is the worst record in the AFC East. and they are currently sitting 4 wins behind the division-leading Buffalo Bills. Outside of the wild card picture, they still have 1 less win than the 7th seed Miami Dolphins, so it's going to be very interesting from here on out. With this loss, the Jets are on a 4-game losing streak, having lost 4 of their last 5. But that's where we are, as the NFL will resume tomorrow on Saturday. We have a good amount of games going on, as we only have 3 Sunday games for Christmas. Taking a look at what's going on in the NHL now, starting off with what would take place in Toronto. The Toronto Maple Leafs would host the Philadelphia Flyers. After the Flyers would score the first goal of this matchup, and there was a lot of back and forth, after it was 1-0, the Maple Leafs would score 4 unanswered to take advantage before Philly would score the last 2. Toronto would take the outright lead off of Mitchell Marner's 13th goal of the season at the end of the second period. The top star would go to William Nylander, as Toronto's right wing out of Calgary would finish with a goal and 2 assists. Toronto's right winger, Mitchell Marner, would finish with a goal and an assist himself. With this win at home, the Toronto Maple Leafs are 21-7-6. They're at 48 points in 34 games, is tied with the Carolina Hurricanes for the second best record in the East. However, within their own division, they sit 6 points behind the division-leading Bruins. The Maple Leafs are on a 2-game winning streak, and they've won 7 of their last 10 games to date. With this loss on the road, the Philadelphia Flyers are now 11-16-7. Their 29 points in 34 games is the second worst record in the Metropolitan Division, and the second worst record in the East. Only the Blue Jackets sit below them. The Flyers are sitting 19 points behind the division-leading Hurricanes, as the Flyers have lost 7 of their last 10 games. Taking a look at what would happen in Boston, the Bruins would host the Winnipeg Jets, as the Bruins came into this matchup with the best record in the NHL. After Winnipeg would score the first 2 goals of the game in the first, the Bruins would end up scoring 3 unanswered to end the game. They would score 2 in the second to tie it up, and the lone goal in the third period will come from Boston's Nick Foligno. Nick Foligno, Boston's left winger out of Buffalo, New York, would get the top star of the game. Boston's right winger, David Pastrnak, would finish with a goal and an assist himself. With this win at home, the Boston Bruins are now 26-4-2. Right now, their 54 points in 32 games is currently the best record in the entire NHL. As of right now, they're the only team with more than 50 points at the moment, as in their division and in the conference, they sit 6 points ahead of the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Carolina Hurricanes. They currently sit 7 points ahead of the Western Conference leading Vegas Golden Knights, as well as things currently stand. With this win, the Bruins are on a 3-game winning streak, and they've won 7 of their last 10 games. With this loss, the Winnipeg Jets are now holding on to an NHL record of 21-11-1. Their 43 points in 33 games is the second best record in the Central Division. They sit 1 point behind the division-leading Dallas Stars, as they've lost 4 of their last 10 games to date. Jumping down to the New York Derby, the New York Rangers would host the New York Islanders in Madison Square. The Rangers would beat the Islanders 5-3. The Islanders would take a 3-2 lead in the second period, giving the Rangers a third period where they would shut the Islanders out 3-0. Kaapo Kakko's 9th goal of the season would put the Rangers ahead, as Kaapo Kakko would be the second star of the game. The first star of the game would be New York's right winger out of Quebec, Julien Gauthier. And then their third star would be Barclay Goodrow, as their center would finish with a goal and 2 assists. With this win at home, but they both are from the same place, the New York Rangers are now 19-11-5. As of right now, their 43 points in 35 games is tied with the Pittsburgh Penguins for the third best record in the Metropolitan Division. They sit 5 points behind the division-leading Hurricanes, and as of right now, the Rangers they've won 8 of their last 10 games to date. With this loss, the New York Islanders are 18-14-2. Their 38 points in 34 games is the third worst record in the Metropolitan Division. They sit 10 points behind the division-leading Hurricanes, as with this loss, the Islanders are on a 2-game losing streak, having lost 7 of their last 10 games to date. Taking a look at what would happen in Ottawa, the Ottawa Senators would host the Washington Capitals, as Washington would end up winning this game in overtime off of Marcus Johansson's overtime goal. After Drake Batherson up, Ottawa would tie the game up. The top star would be Washington's future Hall of Fame left winger out of Moscow, Alex Ovechkin. The number 1 overall pick from 2004 would finish with a couple of assists. With this overtime win on the road, the Washington Capitals are now 18-13-4. Their 40 points in 35 games is the 5th best record in the Metropolitan Division, as they sit 8 points behind the division-leading Hurricanes. The Capitals are on a 3-game winning streak, having won 8 of their last 10 games so far. With this loss at home in overtime, the Ottawa Senators are 14-6-3. Their 31 points in 33 games is the worst record in the Atlantic Division, but the 3rd worst in the East, as they still sit ahead of the Philadelphia Flyers and the Columbus Blue Jackets. In the Atlantic Division, the Senators sit 23 points behind the division-leading Bruins, as they are currently on a 3-game losing streak. Only the Columbus Blue Jackets have a longer losing streak than the Senators in the East, and the Senators have lost 5 of their last 10 games, as 2 of those 5 would come in overtime or later. Jumping out to Pittsburgh, the Penguins would host the Carolina Hurricanes. The Hurricanes would end up beating the Penguins 4-3. In this matchup, the Penguins would go on and take the lead in the 3rd, as Jordan Staal's 10th goal of the season would tie it up and send it into overtime for Carolina. The game-winning goal would come 23 seconds in from Jacob Slavin. It would be his 2nd goal of the season, as with this road win, Carolina would see Jacob Slavin, their defender from Denver, get the top star. With this win on the road, the Carolina Hurricanes are now holding on to a 21-6-6 record. With their 48 points in 33 matches, they are holding on to the best record in the Metropolitan Division, as they sit 2 points ahead of the 2nd-place Devils. They sit 6 points behind the Atlantic Division leading Bruins, to give you a sense of where they sit in the East. They are tied with the Maple Leafs in the Atlantic for the 2nd-best record in the conference. The Hurricanes are on a 7-game winning streak. Their 7-game winning streak is currently the longest active winning streak in the NHL. The Hurricanes have won 9 of their last 10 games to date, and even that loss would come in overtime, which gave them a point. With this loss in overtime, which gave the Penguins a point, they are now holding on to a 19-9-5 record. Their 43 points in 33 games is tied with the New York Rangers for the 3rd most amount of points in the Metropolitan Division, as they have 2 less games played than the Rangers. The Penguins are currently sitting 5 points behind the division-leading Carolina Hurricanes, as with this loss, the Penguins have lost 2 of their last 10 games to date, and one of those 2 losses will come in overtime. Taking a look at what would happen in Vancouver in the Canadian Southwest, the Canucks would host the Seattle Kraken, and in a game that would go to shootout, Vancouver would eventually win this goal fest 6-5, after Brock Besser and Elias Pettersson would score the last 2 goals of the 3rd period and send it into the shootout. As in the shootout, it would be Elias Pettersson who got the game-winning goal on top of his 2 goals and 3 assists. I mean, I would count that as 3 and 3, but of course, statistically, the NHL won't. Like I said, Vancouver center out of Sweden, Elias Pettersson will be the top performer yesterday, as, like I said, 2 goals, 3 assists, and they had 5 goals in regulation as a team. The 2nd star will go to Seattle's right winger out of Amsterdam, Daniel Sprong, as he had a couple of goals. Vancouver center Lane Peterson would have a goal and an assist for himself. With this shootout win at home, the Vancouver Canucks are now 14-15-3. Their 31 points in 32 games is the 3rd worst record in the Pacific Division. They sit 16 points behind the division-leading Golden Knights, and as of right now, the Canucks have won 5 of their last 10 games to date. With this loss on the road in overtime, the Seattle Kraken, from not that far away, I might add, are sitting at an 18-10-4 record. Their 40 points in 32 games is the 3rd best record in the Pacific Division. They've lost 6 of their last 10 games to date. Jumping out to Los Angeles, the LA Kings would host the Calgary Flames in a game that would go to overtime, forced by Calgary's 2 goals at the end of the 3rd. The LA Kings would win it in overtime off of Adrian Kemp's 13th goal of the season. Adrian Kemp, LA center, would be the third star of the game. The second star would be Gabriel Villardi, as he had a goal and an assist. And LA's top star with a goal and an assist would be Blake Lizotte, their center from Lindstrom, Michigan. With this win at home in overtime, the Los Angeles Kings are holding on to a record of 19-12-5. Their 43 points in 36 games is the second best record in the Pacific Division. They sit 4 points behind the division-leading Golden Knights. The LA Kings' 4-game winning streak is the longest active winning streak in the West. As of right now, the Carolina Hurricanes are the only team in the NHL with a longer winning streak than LA. With this overtime loss, the Calgary Flames are 15-12-7. Their 37 points in 34 games is the fifth best record in the Pacific. They are sitting 10 points behind the division-leading Golden Knights, as the Flames have lost 6 of their last 10 games to date. Last but not least, jumping up to the Bay Area, the San Jose Sharks would host the Minnesota Wild, who came in with the longest winning streak in the NHL. The Sharks would beat the Wild 5-2 at home. After Minnesota would tie it up at 1, San Jose would score 3 unanswered between the first and the second to take the outright lead, and as they took the outright lead off of Noah Gregor's second goal of the season. The top star would go to San Jose's defender from Sweden, Erik Karlsson. Karlsson would have a goal and 3 assists, as San Jose's right winger, Timo Meier from Switzerland, would finish with a goal and an assist for himself. With this win at home, the San Jose Sharks are now 11-18-6. The Sharks' 28 points in 35 games is the second worst record in the Pacific Division. They sit 19 points behind the division-leading Golden Knights, as they have now won 3 of their last 10 games. With this loss, the Minnesota Wild are 19-12-2. Their 40 points in 33 games is currently the third best record in the Central Division. They are sitting 4 points behind the division-leading Stars, as they've lost 3 of their last 10 games. So that is where these two teams are sitting. Taking a look at what's going on today, because today is Friday, starting off really early at 7, the Carolina Hurricanes, who are leading the Metropolitan Division and hold the longest active winning streak in the NHL, are going to host the Philadelphia Flyers. At the same time, the Boston Bruins, who hold the best record in the NHL, are going to go to New Jersey to face off against the Devils. At 7, the Central Division runners-up Winnipeg Jets are set to face off against the Capitals in D.C. At 7:30, the Islanders are going to host the Panthers. At 8 o'clock, the Central Division leading Dallas Stars are going to host the Montreal Canadiens. At 8 o'clock, the same time, the defending champs Colorado Avalanche are going to go to Nashville to face off against the Predators. At 8:30, the Chicago Blackhawks, who hold the worst record and the longest active losing streak in the NHL, are set to host the Columbus Blue Jackets, who hold the longest active losing streak in the East. At 9 o'clock, the Edmonton Oilers are going to host the Vancouver Canucks. At 9:30, the Arizona Coyotes are going to host the LA Kings. At 10, the Vegas Golden Knights, who lead the West, are going to host the St. Louis Blues. At 10:30, the Anaheim Ducks are going to host the Calgary Flames. And that's all that I have for you today. Last but not least, jumping out to the NBA, there were 2 big games yesterday. Starting off in the Bayou, the New Orleans Pelicans would host the San Antonio Spurs. The Pelicans would beat the Spurs 126-117 at home. They won it by 9 after they would outscore San Antonio by 20 points in the first quarter alone. On the losing end of this matchup, the visiting Spurs were led in scoring by their starting forward, Jeremy Sochan. Their forward out of Baylor would finish with 23 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists in 31 minutes. Sochan shot 7 for 14 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and 7 for 10 from the free throw line. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown New Orleans Pelicans were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard out of Lehigh, CJ McCollum. The former 10th overall pick would finish with 40 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, a couple of blocks, and 5 turnovers in 37 minutes. He shot 14 for 27 from the field. He would shoot 7 for 14 from 3. He would make all 5 of his free throw attempts. New Orleans' starting center, Jonas Valanciunas, had 16 points and 10 rebounds and he nearly fouled out in 26 minutes. Valanciunas shot 6 for 14 from the field as he made all 4 of his free throws. With this win, the New Orleans Pelicans are now 19-12. Right now, they hold the 3rd best record in the East, as they just have one more loss than the Nuggets and the Grizzlies at the top, so they're just sitting right below them, win percentage-wise. The Pelicans have won 6 of their last 10 games to date. With this loss, the San Antonio Spurs are 10-21. That is the 2nd worst record in the Western Conference, as they sit 9.5 games behind the Nuggets and the Grizzlies at the top of the conference. The Spurs have lost 6 of their last 10 games to date. And then, of course, looking at the other game that would take place in Salt Lake City, the Utah Jazz would host the Washington Wizards. The Jazz would win this game by 8. They won it 120-112 after they would outscore the Wizards by a combined 14 points in the second half to overcome their 6-point deficit. On the losing end of this matchup, the visiting Wizards were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard out of Florida, Bradley Beal. Beal had 30 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists in 31 minutes. He shot 13 for 20 from the field as he made all 4 of his free throws. Washington starting small forward Kyle Kuzma had 21 points and 5 rebounds in 34 minutes. He would shoot 8 for 18 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and he would shoot 3 for 4 from the free throw line. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Utah Jazz would be led in scoring by their shooting guard off the bench, Malik Beasley. Their guard out of Florida State would go on and finish with 25 points and 4 steals in 26 minutes. He would shoot 9 for 17 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the free throw line. Their starting point guard, Jordan Clarkson, the former most improved player, or the former 6th man of the year, would finish with 23 points and 7 rebounds in 30 minutes. He would shoot 7 for 17 from the field and 4 for 7 from 3, and he would make all 5 of his free throws. Utah's starting center, Walker Kessler out of Auburn, finished with 12 points, 14 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 32 minutes. He would shoot 5 for 7 from the field and 2 for 2 from the foul line. With this win at home, the Utah Jazz are now holding on to a 19-16 record. They are holding on to the 7th best record in the West. They sit 2.5 games behind the Nuggets and the Grizzlies at the top of the West. The Jazz are on a 2-game winning streak, having won 5 of their last 10. With this loss, the Washington Wizards are 12-21. As of right now, they hold the 4th worst record in the East, sitting 11 games behind the conference-leading Bucks. The Wizards have lost 9 of their last 10 games to date, and that brings us to where we are today, the day before Christmas Eve. Because today is Friday, looking at what's going to be going on prime time. At 7:30, the Brooklyn Nets, who hold the longest active winning streak at 7, are set to host the Milwaukee Bucks, the only team in the NBA who still has a single-digit amount of losses. That's going to be on NBA TV, like I just said. At 10 o'clock on ESPN, the Phoenix Suns, who are holding on to the 4th best record in the West, are set to host the Grizzlies, who are tied for the best record. Only 2 losses separate them. That's really the difference. Outside of those games, at 7, the Magic are going to host the Spurs. At the same time, the Clippers are going to go to Philly to face off against the Sixers. At 7:30, the Atlanta Hawks are going to host the Pistons, who hold the worst record in the NBA. At 7:30, the 22-win Boston Celtics are set to host the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are sitting at 500 at 16-16. At 7:30, the Cavs are going to host the Raptors, as the Cavaliers are a team that's been surging on a 5-game winning streak. At 7:30, the New York Knicks are going to host the Chicago Bulls after the New York Knicks will get their winning streak snapped. At 8 o'clock, the Miami Heat are going to host the Pacers. At the same time, there's going to be another Texas derby as the Houston Rockets host the Dallas Mavericks. The Rockets look to be the last team in the Western Conference to pick up their 10th win today. At the same time, the Thunder are going to host the Pelicans, as the Pelicans are in the mix for one of the best records in the West. At 9, the Nuggets are going to host the Trailblazers, as the Nuggets are tied for the best record in the West. At 10, the Sacramento Kings are going to host the Washington Wizards, and then at 10:30, the LA Lakers are set to host the Charlotte Hornets. Last but not least, taking a look at what's going on with club soccer overseas. Starting off in England, in the English Carabao Cup, Manchester City would beat Liverpool in this fourth round matchup, as their first goal would come from their elite Norwegian striker, Erling Haaland. Liverpool would even it up at 1 with Fabio Carvalho's 20th minute goal to make it 1-1 in the first half. Riyad Mahrez would score for Manchester City in the 47th minute, followed by a goal from Liverpool's elite Egyptian forward Mo Salah right the next minute, tied at 2. Manchester City's go-ahead and game-winning goal would come in the 58th minute from their Dutch defender Nathan Ake. With this win, Manchester City will advance to the next round of this Carabao Cup. And taking a look at what would happen in Spain, Atletico Madrid was able to pick up a win against Arenteiro. Their first goal would come after Arenteiro would score their first goal, as this second round we start off with Yanni Carrasco's 45th minute penalty, as they were just in added time. Pablo Barrios Rivas would give Atletico Madrid the lead in the 76th minute before Yanni Carrasco would complete his brace in the 91st minute. With this win, Atletico Madrid, like I said, will advance to the third round. Taking a look at what's going on today with club soccer as we go from country to country, there's actually no big games going on in terms of clubs today, but of course as we go day by day, I will keep you guys informed, keep you in the loop. With that said, I want to thank everyone for listening to all 30 minutes of this piece. I really do hope all is well, and I will catch you with more tomorrow. So until then, I hope all is well, and peace out. I'm James Sims, and this is The Elite. Thanks for listening.